All right, Thalassa Van Beek, you were on Driven to Ride. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, you've got quite an interesting story. You've been around the motorcycle world, seems like for quite a long time. So why don't we start at the beginning? What do maybe people know you for? What do you think is your claim to fame?
My claim to fame, wow. Well, that I'm not sure of, but people, if they know me, it's probably either from Instagram or YouTube, where I'm known as No Highways, or if they're working in the industry, it's because I own a marketing agency focused on the motorcycle industry, which is called Motorcycle Marketing.
I like the directness of the name. It's what it says on the tin.
It works very well on Google and with SEO.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So, how long have you been in like the motorcycle industry then?
Well, I'm 36 now. Yes, I am. And I started getting interested in motorcycles when I was 17. So yeah, it's been quite a few years, almost two
Yeah,
decades.
yeah, almost half your life, man, or actually more than half your life. So that's pretty
Wow,
cool.
yeah, I never thought of that, but yeah, you're right.
The only reason I know that is because I'm also 36 and I realized like I started riding at 17 and I was like, "Oh
Mm.
my god, I've been riding motorcycles for over half my life." And I didn't know whether that was cool or whether the fact that I was old enough to have that happen. I'm not
Yeah,
sure
let's
how to
go with
balance
cool. Let's
those.
go with cool.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. So you said you got into motorcycling at 17. How did that even start?
Right. So, yeah, during high school, when I was 16, 17, I worked, on weekends in my free time when I wasn't going to school. I worked as a hostess and I was
Mhm.
invited to work at, it's called the Motorbeurs. It's the biggest motorcycle show in the Netherlands, where I'm from. And I was there. I don't even remember which company I was with, but I was just handing out flyers. And we were standing next to the booth of Yamaha.
Mhm.
And, I was there the whole weekend. I saw a bike on the corner. It was a blue Yamaha R6. And right then and there, I decided I need to get my license because I need to ride that bike.
Wow.
So that's where it started. I hang out the rest of the weekend, in my breaks with the people from the Yamaha stand. So we got to know each other a little bit. They invited me to come over to the MotoGP in Assen later that year, which I did. So I was invited into the VIP lounge, and
No big
um,
deal. Yeah.
I mean, it was very exciting. It was in in the time that Rossi was like the goat basically, or actually still in the beginning of his the goat area, I guess. And yeah, that's kind of how it started. So yeah, I was 17. I started saving all my money. When I was 18, I started to try and get my license. In the end, I got it when I was 19. And with the rules in the Netherlands, I wasn't allowed to actually ride an R6, like a heavy bike, until I was 21. But
Okay.
the day I was allowed to ride it, I bought it. Yeah.
That's cool. So let's talk about that licensing system a little bit because here in the US, you take a class, you get your motorcycle license. You don't need, there's no displacement regulation or anything like
Right.
that. Can you explain that a little bit more?
Yeah, I think it actually changed since I got my license. I believe it got even
Hmm.
more stricter. Back then, it was if you got your license under the age of 21, you were allowed to only ride a motorcycle up to 25 kilowatts for 2 years. So even if you
Okay.
would get it the day before you turn 21, you would still have to wait 2 years. Um, I think the rules have become even stricter now, but I'm not sure exactly. And luckily, I didn't have to deal with with anything more.
Yeah, but it's like a graduated system, it sounds like.
Yeah, exactly. So I actually started when I got my license when I was 19. I had a white, mint green, and pink Honda VTR 250, which
Okay,
then
that's cool.
actually, yeah, I mean, it was very old school. It was from the same year I was born, I think. But it actually turned out after a week or 2 weeks, I realized that it was actually more than 25 kilowatts. So I got rid of that bike and instead got a Honda again, a CBR 600F, but it was restricted so that I was allowed to ride it. And
Oh, okay.
yeah. and had that one until the R6.
So you basically have been sport bike. You started on sport bikes, and that's kind of what drew your eye in the first place with that R6. It sounds like.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I am absolutely not fast, and I know that a lot of people say that, but it's true. Everyone who's ever been riding with me knows that it's true. I really ride to go to the pretty places and watch the cows in the fields and watch the big birds fly over and things like that. Just enjoying being out there. So a sports bike really didn't make sense for me actually, but that's just a bike I fell in love with, and I still think it looks really cool. I still have that bike. It's a 2001 model, and I still think it looks so good. It's a beautiful
Yeah,
bike.
yeah. I mean, it's interesting because some sport bikes do kind of retain that timeless look. Some of them look super dated,
Yeah.
and then sometimes they get like it gets so old that it comes back. Like the VFR Interceptor, the Honda Interceptor with the
Mm.
two headlights that looked like so old school and like 20 years ago, and now it looks cool again. So,
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
um, so did you grow up like did you grow up around motorcycles at all? Your family didn't ride motorcycles at all. It just kind of came from seeing one at a show.
Yeah, basically, my mom had her license when she was younger, but she stopped riding well before I was born.
Mhm.
So yeah, no, we never talked about motorcycles. It wasn't really a thing at home. I think my dad still isn't a big fan of me riding motorcycles. I mean, he's happy for me that I'm happy, but I think he gets scared every time he knows I get on a bike.
Sure. Well, speaking of getting on a bike, that first time you were able to throw a leg over a motorcycle and go for a ride, I mean, were you hooked right from the start, or did you have to warm up to it a little bit? What was that like?
Yeah, so when I was 17, met those people from Yamaha. I started to get a little bit into that scene. So I got some friends with motorcycles, and I could go on the back. I actually went on the back of an R6 all the way from the Netherlands. Well, not to get there, but I was going on like a motorcycle holiday on the back of an R6 through France. Knees in my neck more or less.
Yeah, that doesn't
But
sound like the most comfortable way to travel,
no,
but
but you're 17, you're flexible, it doesn't matter. So,
yeah,
right.
yeah,
So that I definitely really loved. It was great. I couldn't wait to do it myself. Of course, all that time I was telling everyone like, "Oh, I'm gonna get my license. I'm gonna get my license. Motorbikes this, motorbikes that." And I still remember like standing in front of that school, the driving school with the instructor, and it's like, well, okay, here's your bike, get on. And we actually had to go through traffic to get to like a parking lot where we could practice. And I was
okay.
like I remember like the few seconds before getting on, like, oh crap, I actually have to do it now. but
Moment of
but
truth.
yeah, exactly. But then I got on, and yeah, I mean within the first few meters I was like, oh right, okay, yeah, I can do this. And yeah, I loved it ever since.
Yeah, yeah. It seems to be a common theme. Is I've only had one or two people that say it. It took me a step by step, very slow process. Everybody else like, yep, just jumped on and went for it, and that was that. I mean, that was kind of my story. Was I got into dirt bikes with some friends, and that was before I know it, I was doing jumps and everything. So it's one of those things, man. It just once you realize and feel the freedom and the fun you can have. I mean, it's easy to go up to 11. So.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
But you got into the industry. I mean, you kind of stayed in the industry after that, being an umbrella girl, as you call it.
Yeah.
Which can so I've been to a couple of MotoGP races, so I know what that is. But can you explain what an umbrella girl is, what you do in that role, and maybe share some stories that you had from doing that?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, an umbrella girl is basically, when the riders are on the grid waiting before the race, you basically stand next to them holding an umbrella, either to keep the riders dry if it's raining, or in the shade when it's sunny. And I guess a big part of it is that usually you wear a cute little outfit. It's never. I guess that's part of it. Yeah, So when I was invited to that first MotoGP, I was there at the track, and all I could think was like, I need to be part of this one day. And I
Sure.
realized that it was never going to be as a rider. And yeah, so I was doing the hostess job, and I was doing some modeling, and then I actually got asked to do basically something similar, but in car racing. So
Okay.
like holding the signs with the names of the drivers or the countries or things like that. And from there, I got asked. The first time was for the Superbikes, and
Okay. Yeah.
and of course, I was like, heck yeah, I'll do that. I don't care. Like my rule was always kind of like, if I'm wearing more than I would at the beach, I'm okay with it, right? So
That's a good rule of thumb, I would say. Yeah.
you know, and yeah, so I did that for a couple of seasons. Went to quite a few races throughout Europe. And yeah, I did it mostly for superbikes. Did it in Moto 2 as well. And yeah, it was just an amazing time while it lasted. For me, again, like it was a way to just be there. Like, how many people can say that they were on the grid of these kind of races, right? It's not that many
Right.
people, and it's just the vibe on a Sunday morning in the paddock, like nothing compares to it. It's something else. It's something different. And it was interesting because usually these types of jobs, they just get local girls, and it's usually girls who don't care about motorbikes. So they're just there, they're bored, their feet hurt because you're always in high heels. You're either super warm
Right.
or you're cold. Like it's not a comfortable job, and if you don't like motorbikes, it's just not a fun job.
Sure.
So so people would see me there, and they, in the beginning, they wouldn't even bother to really talk to me because they assumed that I didn't care about motorbikes, that I probably didn't want to be there, and they probably also, assumed that I didn't really have a brain, with that kind of job.
Sure.
That's just what people think.
It's an unfortunate stereotype. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But then, because I did like it so much and I did enjoy the job, and of course the team saw that as well, they kept asking me back because I was willing to travel throughout Europe to go to all these different tracks. And so, people started to talk to me, and I had to prove myself a little bit, like saying like, oh yeah, I have an R6. Well, basically when I said I have an R6, they were like, oh,
Okay.
and
She's not kidding around. Yeah.
exactly. And then, talk a little bit more. I'm like, yeah, actually, I study at university, international business. Oh, so, it took a couple of races, but after that, I was just, part of the team, part of the paddock. And I had a really, really fun time for a couple of years.
Yeah. That's cool. Cause yeah, like to your point, you're traveling all over Europe. But it's the same group of people that you're hanging out with. And there's really not a ton of people in the paddocks. Each team has maybe a couple dozen people, I'd say. I might be wrong on the exact number, but um, you're hanging out with the same people kind of no matter where you go.
Yeah.
I've been to two MotoGP races, one in Austin, Texas, and then the second one was in
Mugello,
Italy at
right?
Mugello.
Yeah.
Correct. And it was kind of weird, like seeing some of the same people I saw in Austin, Texas, in Italy. I'm like, this is weird. Like it's very weird. And in Europe, obviously the countries are so much closer. But still, traveling and going to somewhere completely different and seeing the same people is kind of cool. So sounds like you were able to make a lot of friends in the race world.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, I saw these people more than I saw my family, right? Like
Yeah.
every 2 weeks, sometimes even every week. Yeah, yeah, it's exactly what you're saying. You hang around with the same people, and you arrive on Wednesday, Thursday, and then until Sunday evening, you have breakfast, lunch, and dinner all together. On Sunday evenings, often there's like you have a drink all together, and yeah, it was a good time, and definitely there's people that I met back then that I'm still in contact with.
Yeah. It had to have been a lot of fun to travel all over Europe and see all different kinds of racetracks. What was it like just being able to travel with them all over the place?
It was fun, of course, and indeed seeing all these racetracks, and especially after I kind of stopped doing that, and then watching on TV, and you go, oh yeah, I know where that is, or I've been there, or it brings it a lot closer. And of course, also, let's be honest, like if you're watching races, but you actually know some of the people that are racing, it makes it even more exciting to watch the races, right? Because you know a little bit more about what's going on, and it's fun. In terms of the traveling, so this was all when I was, I think, 24, 25.
Okay.
And I thought it was so cool that I had my, what was it, like KLM silver member status, whatever it was called.
Oh, sure,
I felt like a, yeah, that was cool. And back then, I didn't have a whole lot of other things to do, so it was fine. But the truth is, you don't really see a lot of these countries. So I would usually try to fly in a day earlier or leave a day later, so I could at least have one day to kind of see what else is around in whatever country I'm at.
Sure.
But really, it's a lot of just you fly in, you drive to the racetrack, you have a hotel close by, and you drive back to the airport after a couple of days. So it was a lot of fun, and it was fun hanging out with these people. But then the traveling itself is like, I guess it's romanticized a bit,
Yeah, it does get a little grueling if you're working, but it's cool to see. It's cool to see different racetracks.
That is true. That is true. But it's like you're saying, like indeed it is work, and it was interesting because towards the end of the season, everyone was like, "Oh God, not another race," and everyone was tired and fed up. And then it's winter break, and you're so happy that it's over. And then after a few weeks, you're like, you start texting people, and it's like, when can we get going? And then the season starts again, and everyone couldn't be more thrilled to be there and do it all over again.
Sure. Yeah. So how many years did you were you involved with that?
Well, so the Umbrella Girl thing I did, I don't know, I want to say maybe 2 years that it was really dead. Then I did a year with what was back then called the European Junior Cup, which actually traveled with the Superbikes paddock throughout Europe. And I was just helping out there with some communication stuff and like promotional stuff, things like that. So there was another year in the paddock, and then after that, I worked at a marketing and communications agency for one of the clients was Yamaha Racing, and so with that, I actually went to 4 or 5 MotoGP races, like in the paddock, and doing that. Yeah, so it's been a few years.
Yeah, well, and you must have enjoyed it because now you have your own marketing firm, like you said, called Motorcycle Marketing.
Yeah.
After hearing your story, with international business and loving motorcycles, it all kind of makes sense. But where'd you get the idea to start this? And what made you make the leap to start your own marketing firm?
Right. Yeah. So, well, from the Umbrella Girl, the truth is, like, it was really fun, and I enjoyed it a lot. I wouldn't have want to miss it. But after some years, as I was getting older as well, like, first of all, I did start to feel a little bit brain dead because, it's like I wasn't really using my brain anymore, right? In the beginning, it's still like, oh, booking flights and this and that and the other. But after a few years, it's fun, but it's not exactly challenging.
Yeah,
And the
you're on
other thing
autopilot.
is,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And the other thing is that I did start to dislike men a lot because everyone in the paddock, like, the people who were working there were fine. Everyone was nice and friendly, and it was all good. Like, I really felt like being one of them.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, there's visitors walking around, and people would ask, like, "Oh, can I take a picture with you?" All fine, it's part of the job. As long as people are friendly and nice, and that's cool. I met really cool people that way too. But there was one particular race. There was a Formula One race in Belgium where I was doing the same thing. There were like a group of men, and they were literally going like, woo, 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 when a couple of girls walked by, right? I
Were
don't
they
know.
American?
That was no. Well, I assume they were Belgian or maybe French or Dutch. It was at Spa-Francorchamps, but
Okay.
that was. I think that was like the last thing for me where I was like, I'm getting too old for this. Like you guys,
Sure.
you're married, you have kids at home, and this is your one weekend where you can go out away from your family, and this is really. I was like, this is enough. Like the new younger generation of girls should doing this.
Sure.
This was enough. So, after I stopped doing that, I went back to liking men again. So we're all good.
Well,
But
it's the F1 race. It's the F1 race fans,
yeah,
not the
it's
motorcycle race
car
fans.
people, not
Yeah,
motorbike
see,
people.
man,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
car people.
exactly.
Let's can't do
Right.
it.
So then I decided, like, okay, I need to start doing. Well, I need a new challenge.
Sure.
Let's do something with that degree that I had by then. So yeah, I started working. I had a few odd jobs, but then there was this job opening at the communications agency with Yamaha Racing, and I could basically I sent them like a letter, and I applied, and it
Mhm.
was basically like, well, if you want to know more about me, call this person, that person, that person, or that person, because that was my world, right? At Paddock, I had so many references and so many people who could vouch for me,
Sure.
and yeah, so it was pretty easy. I got the job, which was fun. I enjoyed it, but yeah, in the end, the people I was working with, we weren't really, let's say, we weren't really aligned. So I also left pretty quickly. The clients were great and the work was fun, but yeah, just some, yeah.
Not a good match. Not a good
Yeah,
match.
exactly.
It
And
happens.
exactly. So I left, I applied for other marketing jobs. But that's when I realized that all my life I've always had really fun jobs.
Mm.
Like with the motorbikes, or also the whole, like, during high school, the promotional work, modeling. Like, it was always fun jobs, and now I found myself applying to marketing jobs at boring IT companies that I couldn't care less about, and it must have shown in my application letters, because I think I sent like 20 letters and I didn't get invited for even one.
Wow.
But like, okay, I'm gonna need money, so I decided to start freelancing. And
Yeah, for sure.
I worked. I took a job as a barista waitress at a lunch coffee shop, while I was building up my freelance work. And the freelance work was in whatever type of industry the client was from. If the people were nice, I was open to doing it. So I
Sure.
did that, and yeah, after 6 months, I stopped the waitressing work and just had my full-time freelance work. So I did that for several years. Kept a link with the motorcycle industry, whether it was just by keeping my connections warm with people there, here and there, a small job. Um, but then, yeah, it was, I think I want to say 3 years ago, almost, that I'd been freelancing for several years by then. And I figured it was a couple of things. First of all, I missed the motorcycle world. Like, I wanted to get back into it.
Sure. Yeah.
It was also because I was working remote. Like, all my freelance clients were remote, but some of them were kind of like, stiff and formal. And I wanted to go out with my motorbike and be able to, I don't know, if I had to take a meeting from in front of my tent with my motorcycle next to me, I wanted to be able to do that without them
Sure.
thinking I wasn't working, right? Because of the location I was at.
Yeah, because you're still riding and like touring and riding a motorcycle this whole time, right?
Yes. I've been, yeah. I continued riding, yes. Um, and so, I just wanted clients who were a bit more open-minded with that. And then also the other thing was that I kind of missed working a bit with a team. I mean, as a freelancer, it's just you, right? And that was like, it was fine for a long time, but I wanted something more. I wanted to be able to offer my clients more. So that's kind of how the idea of an agency was born. So I surrounded myself with some other marketing experts, all with their own specialty. So I specialize in social media marketing, and then I have like copywriters and SEO specialists and a graphic designer and things like that. And the one rule would be everyone I work with has to ride motorbikes. Because I truly do believe, and you know this too, and everyone who listens to this knows this, like it's a specific language, right? And you can just tell when an advertising campaign or something on a text is written by someone who isn't a biker, it shows. Like real bikers will realize that. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's was born now almost 3 years ago, and we're going pretty strong.
Cool. Yeah, that's awesome. And like you said, you've been riding this whole time, and you've had the R6, but you've got an interesting story about that Yamaha R6. Can you tell me, just tell me the story about that motorcycle, because it seems kind of unique.
Yeah. So, are you referring to the part where I like had to sell it for a bit and then got it back, or what?
Yeah.
You're gonna have to cut this out. Okay. Yeah. That's okay. Right. Yeah. So again, like I said, the day I was allowed to ride an R6, I got it. And actually, I didn't mention this yet, but at that time, also during my studies on Saturdays for a few years, I was working at a Yamaha dealership. And so of course my boss there and everyone there already knew that I wanted an R6. So about a month before I was allowed to ride it, my boss took me aside. He was like, you know what just got traded in? And it was this second hand, but like an R6. Like, yes, you put like a nice little sign on there for me, and in 1 month I'll take that home. So that's what happened, and I rode the bike, but I also had a horse. And I was a student, so obviously, with a student with a motorcycle and a horse has zero money left. So I was said, if anything happens with the horse, I'll sell my motorbike to pay for the horse. And for years, It wasn't needed. And then one day, she got a really bad injury, and the next day, the bike was sold. So I actually did go without motorbike for a couple of years.
Yeah.
The horse recovered more or less, took like 6 months, but she was okay. And then I had her for a few more years, after which she passed away. And then a couple of months after that, I actually decided to move to Spain, and where I'm still at now. And I got settled here in October, and then I think it was probably like maybe February, March, where, I was settled. By then, of course, I had my work. It was a few years later. I was making enough money. And all of a sudden, now I lived in a country with mountains and a lot of sunny days. Like, maybe I should consider buying a motorcycle again. That it was a few years, maybe 3 years that I went without a motorbike, something like that.
Okay.
And so I was considering that. And then I get a message from a friend back in the Netherlands. He's like, hey, I think your R6 is for sale on this like online marketplace. And I sold it to like a friend of a friend of a friend. So I still had his phone number. So I sent him a message like, hey, is my bike for sale? He's like, wow, that's fast. I just put it online this morning. I was going to write you, but yes, it's for sale.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, like, the next day I was actually flying back to the Netherlands to visit family. And I was like, give me 1 day to think about it. But, that evening I had already decided I'm going to buy it in my bike. And it's my R6. I'm going to buy it back. So, yeah, that's exactly what happened. I flew back to the Netherlands that weekend and bought my R6 back. And I have to admit, I haven't touched it in like 3 years now, but it's still in my garage.
I was going to say, you still have it, and that's the important part.
I still have it, yes.
Yeah,
yes.
that's kind of serendipitous, because, like you said, a friend of a friend of a friend, you may have his number, but, it could have sold it to somebody else, sold it to somebody, then got sold. I mean, that could have been in a whole different country by then. And the fact that, you had people looking out for you and said, hey, your R, and it's your R6. It's specifically yours. That's
Yeah.
kind of fate almost, that you can't ever get rid of that motorcycle.
No, exactly. I feel bad that it's just collecting dust right now, but I got some other motorbikes by now that are just a way better fit for me.
Sure.
Yeah, but it's a hard one to say goodbye to. Yes, for sure.
Hey, as long as you got the garage space,
Exactly.
it'll hang out. So yeah, what
Exactly.
other bikes do you have in your collection now? It seems like it's more than a couple.
Yeah, I call it my 50 Shades of Blue because they're all Yamahas.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah, not even on purpose. That's just how it worked out.
Hmm.
So my main bike now is a Tenere 700. That's the bike I do, my big trips with, and if I want to go for a day of riding or a weekend, whatever, that's usually the bike that I take. I still have the XT 660,
Okay.
which is the bike. So what happened is that, okay, I'll back up a little bit. I had the R6 here in Spain, and I was riding through the Pyrenees, through the mountains here, with a friend who had a Super Tenere. And
Okay.
for a little bit, we decided to swap bikes so I could try the Super Tenere. And it was just, I was more comfortable on that bike, obviously, but also actually faster because I felt more comfortable and therefore more confident. And therefore everything was just, like spiraling upwards, basically.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
And so that kind of opened my eyes to that. Although I did realize, like, I don't want a bike this heavy, like that I don't want, but maybe something like this.
Yeah.
And then a little bit later, they started talking about this Tenere 700. It was brand new back then. But I thought, well, I don't want to buy a brand new bike, first of all, because of the money, but also because I'm not even sure. Like, I think I'm going to like this riding style, but I'm not sure. So let's get a secondhand XT 660, right?
Hmm.
Had that for a month. And then I met someone a year later, a year after I got that XT. And he actually had two Teneres. And I told him this story. And he was like, well, try mine, see what you think. And within we did like a little off-road training with it. And within a couple of minutes, I was like, yes. And I think that same afternoon, I actually ordered one. And so I did get, in the end, a brand new Tenere 700.
Wow.
Yes. So that's my main bike now. The XT is actually up for sale. So
Okay.
I won't have that too much longer. I have a WR 250. So a little off-road bike, because I love the idea of going off-road, but also scares me a lot. And then, the T7, it's a heavy bike and it's top heavy. If you drop it, like, I can't pick it up actually.
Okay.
So I have a moto winch with me if I really go somewhere on my own, like on longer trips, that if I have to do it on my own with the winch, I can do it. But without it, I can't get it done. I have back problems as well. So it's just, it's a no-go for me. So I got the WR, and because I live like on a gravel road going into the mountains, like I do not even have to touch the pavement if I don't want to. So I have that bike. Yeah, it's good living here. I have that one to, with that one, I can go out on my own and I won't do anything extreme, but just like the easy little trails here, because, I know with that bike, if I drop it, I can pick it up. If, I get scared and I want to turn around, I can turn it around. So it makes me feel a bit more at ease. That one, R6, XT, Tenere. And I have an XMAX 250, which is a motor scooter, 250cc, just to go to the city through Barcelona.
Sure.
So I usually say I have 4.5 motorcycles. I think the scooter doesn't really count as a full motorcycle. But,
And that's a pretty well-rounded collection, though. You kind of got a little bit of everything, so that's
exactly.
impressive. And then you have the garage space for it. I mean, is also kind of impressive.
Yeah.
But it sounds like Spanish riding culture is a little more interesting than Dutch riding culture. Is that true?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the way the countries are, just, it's kind of, it makes sense because, the Netherlands, it's flat, first of all, completely flat.
Okay. Yeah.
the weather is usually pretty bad. It rains a lot. It gets cold. It's just, and then the roads are, they're not just flat, but they're super crowded, and it's just not really good riding there. Of course, there's some places where, if you're lucky and it's not too busy, yeah, it's pretty, but it's not great. Whereas obviously here in Spain, you've got mountains and you've got the most beautiful roads, and if you go out of the cities, it gets super quiet. And people are raised here with motorcycles. It's what they
Hmm.
watch with their daddies on TV when they're young kids, and it's what they see their dads and their uncles and their neighbors, and maybe also their mothers, and the women in their life. Everyone rides motorbikes, so it's at a completely different level here.
Yeah, I was. We've talked to Dennis Noyes,
Mm.
who lived in Spain for a really long time, and he's actually from the same state in the U.S. that I am, Illinois.
Oh,
So
okay.
he knows how flat and boring it can get here. It sounds like the Netherlands are kind of the same, but I was really surprised to find out how much passion there is in Spain for motorcycles and motorcycle racing. It's like just below soccer with how popular it is. It sounds like.
Yeah, yeah. That's the thing. Like on mainstream, 8 o'clock news on TV, it covers MotoGP, it covers Superbikes, I
Wow.
think, as well.
Yeah.
But it makes sense because Spaniards are doing often really well. So yeah, it just
Yeah.
kind of the people in racing are doing well, so it gets more coverage, so people get more interested, so more money goes to it, so the races can get better, and it just continues that way.
Yeah. It's kind of a vicious cycle, but in a good way. So.
Exactly, exactly.
So you said you've done a lot of traveling. Tell me some of the places that you've traveled. Maybe what's one of the most favorite trips you've taken recently.
Yeah. I mean, I loved all my trips. The one I did last year was to North Cape, so the most northern part of Europe.
Oh
Um,
wow. Okay.
yeah, and so up through Sweden and then up into Norway, following the Norwegian coast back down south, which is beautiful. And then, yeah, basically took a ferry, and then the Netherlands, Belgium, France, and back to Spain. It was in total a 2 month trip, and yeah, it was something that I'd been wanting to do for a very long time. Not so much the North Cape, but I really wanted to go to the Lofoten. It's a group of islands in the north of Norway,
Okay.
and I figured if I'm there, I may as well go to North Cape, because on the map it looks like it's just around the corner. I think it was a
Sure.
two day ride from but whatever, you're there. So and again, like, I work from my laptop, so every morning I would work and then ride a few hours and then work some more in the evening. So it didn't matter how much time it would take me. So yeah, that's what I did. Actually, when I did get to the Lofoten, the weather was absolutely horrible. I saw every weather alarm that the app on my phone could show, like
Oh wow.
obviously like wind warnings and rain warnings, but then also avalanche warnings and like mud stream debris warnings, like things that I actually had to look up, like, what does this even mean?
Jeez.
Yeah, it was bad. That wasn't my favorite part of the trip. It lasted for about, I want to say, maybe 10 days, that the weather was just really bad. I had to stay
Man.
several nights at the same place because it was just too dangerous to ride. At one point, I had spent, I think, 2 nights at the same place,
Mhm.
and I was fed up. I wanted to go, and it looked like there was going to be like an hour where it was going to be a little bit better, the weather. And I figured, okay, that's when it's gonna happen. And it's an island, small island, so there was only like a coastal road.
Sure.
And the owner of the guest house where I was staying was like, "Are you sure?" I was like, "Yeah, I'll just go really slow. I'll take my time. I'm not in a rush, but I want to get out of here. I want to continue my trip."
Sure. Sure.
So I got out of the village, and within, I don't know, like within 100 meters, I was just completely blown to the side. And I was
Oh
like,
geez.
yeah, no, okay. So I turned back and knock, knock, knock. Hi, can I stay one more night? Yes, yes. We didn't even make your bed yet. Like, yes,
We
your room
figured.
is
We
still
figured.
there.
Yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, the thing is with those kind of things, like the first few days, it's still part of the adventure, right? But after 10 days of just having to wait another day, okay, this day you can ride, but it's just rain all day long. You're riding in the clouds, so there's no views. It's not pretty. It's like, so after 10 days, it was like, yeah, I was not in a good mood anymore. And then I decided, like, okay, so I had to, from the most southern island, there goes a ferry back to the mainland, which was, I don't know, let's say it was a maybe 2-3 hour ferry ride, something like that.
Mm,
Um, and there was again like a window of half a day where it was a little bit better because I get seasick pretty easily. Like I
okay.
needed to be a little bit better weather.
Yeah.
But yeah, I when it was possible, I took the ferry, went back to the mainland, and I had to wait another day because it was snowing again. And after that, I just left. I went south on the highway and I just kept going until the sun was shining again. And from then on, the trip was fun again.
There you go. Yeah, I mean, sometimes it is just a drag, but you're kind of in the middle of it, and you got to get out of it.
Yeah.
And you traveled that trip solo, right?
Yes, I did. Yes.
Yeah. So you
Um,
don't have friends to commiserate with. You're just kind of on your own, just dealing with it.
yeah, I have to say that because, I'm not a big influencer or anything, but I do have some followers on Instagram. And it was actually kind of nice because there were a few days where I was just really, to be honest, like I was just crying out of just desperation and tiredness and just being fed up of it all. And
Yeah.
so, well, I didn't go onto Instagram with my crying face, but yeah, I was like, talking a little bit about that it just sucked at that time. And I just spent a few days just chatting with random people because what else are you gonna do when you're sitting in your hotel room and it's a big storm outside,
Yeah.
right?
You've
So
literally got nothing else to do.
no, exactly. Which, and that actually made it kind of fun because it is a fun way to get into, well, it's also you and I are talking now because of motorbikes, right? Maybe not because of Instagram, but still
Yeah.
like it's, and it's the same thing what happened then. You get to connect with all sorts of people, but what you have in common is motorbike. So, that's kind of what I did. But yeah, so I usually do travel on my own,
Hmm.
which, I do like it actually because you really have the freedom to go where you want, whenever you want. If my plan for the day was to go right, but when I get there, I decide I want to go left, I don't have to discuss it with anyone. If I want to have a break one day, I can just do it. It's complete freedom.
Yeah. Yeah. It is nice. You can go your own speed. You can stop when you want.
Exactly.
Um, and that's kind of the ultimate like traveling kind of freedom when people talk about it is you don't really have to answer to anybody. I just went to
Yeah.
Sturgis about a month ago. I don't know if you're familiar with the Sturgis motorcycle rally
A
in,
little
in the
bit. Yeah, I've
US.
never been, but yeah.
It's a little wild, and it took about 2 days to get there from where I'm at, and but I went by myself, and being able to just like you said, stop when you want, go the direction you want. Really, it does kind of free you up, and when you spend the whole day riding, it is really nice to be able to do that. So I totally understand that.
Yeah.
Um, but speaking of, community and being connected with people through motorcycles, I mean, you've built a business on the community through through motorcycles. What do you have like a motorcycle group that you hang out with or friends in Spain that you go ride with?
Uh, Not specifically a group, I would say. Um, Although it is a really small community and everyone does kind of know each other, I guess. My best friend here, she's Dutch, but she rides as well. I met her at a motorcycle event here. My partner, he rides motorbikes as well, of course. And then yeah, there's like I have another friend. She lives in Barcelona. She's not here a lot, but she rides as well. So when we do see each other, we do ride.
Hmm.
My boyfriend's friends are all motorbike riders. Yeah, I mean, if that's where you're hanging out, then that's where you meet people, and then those are the people who are your friends, right? So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, how has the motorcycle world kind of changed over the course of your time? And I mean, like you said, it's been over half your life. You've kind of been involved in the motorcycle industry. What are some changes that you've seen over the course of time?
Oh, I don't know. Like I find that a bit difficult to say. Maybe because I am so close to it every single day that I don't see the big changes. Maybe um, I do think that there's a lot more women riding now, and there's a lot more also a lot more choice for women.
Hmm.
For example, when it comes to like clothing, gear, back then, I so when I got the R6, no, actually before the R6 with the CBR, I wanted a one piece leather suit.
Sure. Yeah.
I had three options, and that was the shop with the biggest female motorbike gear collection in the Netherlands. There were three one piece options. I'm
Jeez.
quite sure there's a few more by now, and it also, it starts to look a lot better now. The kind of the typical image of a woman with like a textile motorbike suit and just like bulky and like you almost look like a man. Like that's not needed anymore. You can have like very safe protective gear and still look nice. And that's
Sure.
that's that's fun. I do, like, in general, I do see a lot more women riding motorbikes. I think, there's now in the superbike paddock, there's the World WCR, the Women's Circuit Racing World Championship, which
Hmm.
just started this year. And so again, that's something more, to promote women in motorbikes. So I think that's very, very cool to see.
Yeah,
That's
for
that's
sure.
definitely one of the changes. Um, I do, I think the whole ADV dual sports bikes, of course, are a lot more popular now. Like back then, again, when I got into it, I mean, sports bike, everyone wanted sports bikes, at least where
Yeah,
I lived.
100%. Yeah, it was
Yeah,
same here. Same here.
yeah. Where now, I mean, maybe it's because all those people who wanted sports bikes back then, they're now, all older and want to sit straight up and their back hurts and things like that. So we're all getting GSs and Teneres now. I
Right.
don't know, but clearly that's a scene that's become a lot more, yeah, a lot more active, of course.
Hmm. So last question with, working in the motorcycle industry, and having your own agency, being able to ride all over the place, and having this much experience, it's kind of a two-part question, but what's your favorite part of working in the motorcycle industry? And after all this time, what makes motorcycling still so special to you?
Hmm. Oh, okay. I think my favorite part about working in it is, I mean, it's such a cliche, but really the people.
Hmm.
Because it is, especially when you work in the industry, it's like such a small community. Everyone knows everyone. So I go to quite a few motorcycle events throughout Europe every year, and
Hmm.
it's almost similar to the paddock, like these events. Like you see the same people every time, and um, you know, like 99% of the people are just fun and friendly, and there's not, of course, there's competition in the industry, but I think overall most people just want the industry to grow and succeed rather than I want to win and you have to lose, right? So
Sure.
everyone is just having a good time, and when you're, so yeah, when you're talking about work with clients or prospects, sure, you talk about business, but half of the conversation is also about, oh, I tried this bike, or oh, I went riding there, or
Hmm.
it's just people talking about their passion, their hobby. And yeah, it's easy to
Yeah.
connect with people that way.
Well, and in being in Europe too, I mean, you have so much choice of different countries to go to and meeting people from different countries. I remember being in Italy at the Mugello race and seeing all the different license plates from the Netherlands, from the UK, from Germany, from France, from, I mean, Greece. I saw a couple from Eastern Europe. I mean, you really do. It does really bring a lot of people together, and you get a lot of different perspectives on things, which I thought was cool. So I imagine you
Yeah,
get a lot of that too.
yeah, for sure. It's just it always feels like, just especially these events, it just feels like hanging out with friends. Like, yes, you talk business, but it's just hanging out with friends.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then
um
what makes motorcycling so special for you still?
I don't know how to answer that. It's just still every time I get on that bike and I get into the mountains or just like a nice road, I'm like, I don't know, I just feel so happy and so excited. And then especially the days where the riding is going really well, it just makes me feel on top of the world. And
Hmm.
yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I can put it into words. It's just, yeah, no, sorry. I wish I had a better answer for you, but it's really, it every time I'm on the bike, it just makes me happy and excited, and like I can conquer the world together with my bike.
I don't think I could have put it any better myself. So, Thalassa, thank you for being here and spending some time with us. Where can folks connect with you if they want to see what you're doing, or maybe connect with motorcycle marketing?
Yeah, so for what I'm personally doing with motorbikes, it's best to find me on Instagram under the name No Highways. And if you're interested in working with me, then the website is www.motorcycle.marketing.
Super easy. I love it. So, well, Thalassa, thanks for being here. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you so much for having me. Have a good day.